Greetings, Poe fans. Welcome to another edition of Poe Unplugged. I am Carmen Bolden.
And I am Jeanie Smith, and we are
The Potastic Two.
Come zoom with us into the Unbook Club dedicated to the works of Mr. Edgar Allan Poe.
Hello, 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 and welcome back to another wonderful episode on Poe Unplugged, where this week, wait a minute, not a week, it's a month. We do these monthly, right?
Yes.
Okay. For this, we do episodes, we do all kinds of things. It's like I do something every week because Carmen makes me. But anyway, so this month we are actually delving in a little bit into modern time with another author that was very much influenced by Mr. Poe, and he's going to regale us of his actually influences from Mr. Poe and his ideas about the genius behind the Telltale Heart, and that's Mr. Stephen King. So we all know Stephen King. I mean, everybody wants to say he's the horror king, but we all know who the true horror master really is. But he had to get his ideas from somewhere, so he got them from Poe. So this month, we actually looked at an essay, first of all, that King wrote, and it's in is it an anthology? Would you call it anthology? We can't see that. It's okay.
Well, I was going to say.
All right. Yeah, there you go. Gary's got it.
It's definitely
Yeah,
an anthology. Yeah.
It's definitely
it's an anthology. And read that name for me, Gary. I only got the name of the essay. What's the name of the book?
Oh, the name of the book, In the Shadow of the Master, Classic Tales by Edgar Allan Poe.
Thank you.
Edited
And
by
the
Michael
essay,
Connelly.
yeah, it was edited by Michael Connelly. And the essay is called The Genius of the Telltale Heart by Stephen King. That's in there. Now, one thing that got me was it's really short.
Yes.
So,
yeah.
I mean, I liked it that way because, he was very straight to the point, but it was a little short. It's like his biography was almost as long as the essay.
Very true.
So that's okay. The one thing I realized, and it kind of made me feel old, was that Stephen King was born in 1947. And I'm like, he can't be that old because I'm not that old. So he can't be that old. Okay. But I was like, no, okay, wait a minute. Yeah, we're all getting old. But anyway, so anyone want to start with the essay? I figure we'll start with that one because it's shorter than the old man's ticker, and I think we might have a lot more discussion about the old man's ticker. I know I got a lot to say about it. Anybody want to start? Anybody? Come on. Okay, I'll start. Anyway,
Well,
the one thing that I love about the essay is in the first part that the man does a lot of public appearances, and he, as usual, as we'd all say, he gets asked one of the most wonderful questions of all: what scares you?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, come on, Stephen King, he scares many people. So you got to think, what's got to scare this man? And the two things that he says that leaps immediately to mind is The Lord of the Flies by William Golding and The Telltale Heart by Edgar Allan Poe. I can understand. Lord of the Flies, the first time I read it, I was like, I think the reason it's so scary to me is I could see it happening. And I think that's one of the reasons that most things, when I read the horror parts, it has to be as close to where you can imagine it, but then you probably can picture it that it's happened somewhere in the world.
Yeah.
That's just me, though. Anybody else? Come on.
Well, I read it when I was in high school, Lord of the Flies, as our novel for class. And it kind of felt like I was part of the group because I was sort of the same age.
Yeah.
Which was kind of scary.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, well, first of all, planes themselves, as most people know in this group, I have an obsession with air emergencies. So I know way too much about certain air traffic problems that's happened ever since air flight happened. So the Lord of the Flies, that's one of the things that scared me the most about it, was I could see that, especially in those early days, there was so many accidents that happened. I mean, think about it. You bought the insurance at the airport before you got on the plane. Life insurance. And it's like, okay, I don't know if we should, worry more, more about that than the actual plane. But Stephen King goes on to talk about how that Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, his Sherlock Holmes is basically C. August Dupin, which I have to agree.
Absolutely. It's just like
definitely.
a continuation.
Exactly. Ooh, Will says he remembers seeing the film as a kid and being traumatized by Piggy getting crushed by the rock.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, the movie was good. The movie was really good. I remember that.
Yeah,
too.
there are two film versions, one from 1963 and one from 1990.
Oh yeah, but ours was the old one. Yeah.
Yeah, the 63
know
one,
there
I
was a
think.
1990.
Yeah, I haven't seen the newer version. I will say this, because I read it I think I was 8th grade or 9th grade when I read it for the first time, and then teaching it, because I teach that every year now. And I developed a better appreciation for it. I've always liked it, but I've developed a better appreciation for that book teaching it. I got more out of it in hearing the kids discuss it and things like that. One of the things I wanted to add too, with the two things that scares him with that book as well as the Telltale Heart, is when you think about, he talked about the first work of criminal sociopathy, and he talks about Hannibal Lecter, greatest sociopath of them all, and thinking about what he focused on. He named, Jeffrey Dahmer, Son of Sam, and thinking about all of these serial killers and the, basically sociopaths. When you think about the characters in Lord of the Flies and how they were having those kind of traits, they're developing them out of raw nature. And then you've got the narrator from the Telltale Heart. You can see that type of thing is what King focused on, with what scares him, is somebody like a true person that could create all these acts, like, because the Telltale Heart could be, it could have happened, and kind of has in some ways.
Right.
Many times over.
Yeah.
Can I add something?
Yeah.
He's talking about being scared by Lord of the Flies. I remember reading it first as a 9th grader in high school many, many, many years ago. And then as a teacher, a few years after that, teaching it to my 8th grade students. And I can't say I found it scary, but I found it depressing as hell.
Yeah.
To think that a human could disintegrate. It's like some of the characters, and for the life of me, I can't recall all of their names, but the characters to come out and to be so ruthless over power. And that's not a whole lot different than what we have going now, except people are sneakier about covering it up. And I hate to say that, but that's the way I feel. Anyway, I found the book depressing as far as human nature is concerned.
I would agree with you in both counts, for sure.
Yeah, it's kind of like the thing like that you have now with Walking Dead. It's not really about the monsters; it's how people react to these situations, like how they turn on each other. So yeah, to me that is scary, because at the end of the day, without law and order, people do become monsters.
Yeah.
Well, the whole premise is the mob mentality about the nature versus nurture. That's the only thing in my criminology classes that we would always have the biggest debate about: nature versus nurture. What creates is is it a sociology thing or is it a psychology thing? So it's all about, we all have choices. That's basically what it is. It's a choice. We choose whether we choose one side or the other. And the mob mentality, especially in the Lord of the Flies, yes, like Mike said, it was depressing as hell, because you have all these children left to their own devices, and they make a choice. And that choice, it goes, rather badly. So, but then, like, he mentioned Hannibal Lecter, like Carmen said, Hannibal Lecter was probably the most developed sociopath or psychopath, whichever one you want to call, because to my knowledge, he masters both of them. Uh, in the world of fiction. So taking Poe's narrator, which I love how Stephen King mentions in the essay that the narrator, you never know who the narrator is. Mm-hmm. That is one of the things that Poe does best is he's created this psychopath or sociopath, whatever you want to call it, but no one truly knows who he is or she is. Could be either one.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen the video on YouTube? They've got a video on YouTube that they did a short film where the main character that's doing the murdering is a girl.
Yeah, it's from Poe movies. Poe movies.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. It was really something. Yeah. I mean, I was like, I never even thought about that, but it really makes sense. It could be anybody.
Yeah.
It could be anyone. It could be anyone.
Yeah. And that's go ahead.
It's almost like we're describing two genres. There's a horror, we call them both horror, but one of them is within the realm of the possible and the realm of the, I don't want to say commonplace, but the realm of our current lives. And that's, it could be Hannibal Lecter, it could be Lord of the Flies, it could be things that you can conceive of happening under your understanding of the world today. And then there's this other category, which are more, either the science fiction or the monster coming in, where the fright is something we don't understand, that you can't conceive of. And it's that latter one that, I think of as a more fun kind, because, you're kind of in make-believe land. Whereas what's so scary about Lord of the Flies is you can see it happening. You can conceive of it happening. As a few of you said, come up with news stories that show that we're not that far from it. So it depends what kind of scare you're up for in this horror. But the one that has you looking around corners and probably one of the earlier words being depressed, I think it's the more realistic kind.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, it fits with the fear. What makes you afraid?
Yeah.
What triggers that fear response? Now, when I was 10 years old, I watched Nightmare on Elm Street with Freddy Krueger. And Freddy Krueger was based on a child molester that was electrocuted when he was, what's the word? Oh, yeah, put to death and the death penalty. So it was based on a true story, but it had passed, like Steve was saying, it had passed the realm of reality when it got where he was coming back from the dead and he was killing, in the dreamland. So to me, being 10 years old and watching that, I was more afraid when I was awake, never had any nightmares. It was always when I was awake that I was checking under my bed, that I was looking around because, and that song still stuck into my head even today. 1, 2, Freddy's coming for you.
That's like
that kind of thing.
It's creepy. Yeah, with the little kids singing it. Yeah, that's freaking creepy.
And I think that fits with what Steve's saying. The reality of things that like Jeffrey Dahmer and those kinds of things. Those are things we know that have happened or happened. Lord of the Flies is something that very well could happen. But like Holly said with Walking Dead, I hope we never have any zombies walking around or anything like that. But, you never know in today's society. I'm just saying. Radioactive, just getting a little too much here. But anyway, but Stephen King, a man who has reached notoriety because of his ability to sink fear into his readers. Hello. Now that was weird. Is the aliens calling? Did we forget to let them in, Carmen? What in the world? Okay.
Maybe it's it.
Anyway. Yeah, maybe. It's probably Tommy Knocker knocking on the door. Tommy Knocker, knock. Okay, sorry. See, that's another thing that's popped into my head, But I love how he definitely pays homage to Edgar Allan Poe. That he gives props where props are due. The man created basically the first fictional psychopath. Serial. Well, you can't really call him a serial killer because we only know that he killed one.
Okay.
Yes, Cheryl.
Yeah. Okay. So when I was a teacher, I used to tell my students, my fifth graders, don't just take things, as fact when somebody says something, check it out. So when I read this, when Stephen King in this essay said that Poe created the first work of criminal psychopathy, however that's pronounced. I thought, and then he had the little number, and I thought, oh, he's going to give his source. And he didn't give a source for that, where he got that information. So I decided to research that and see if Poe really was the first one. And I found an article from a site called lithub.com, and an article that was written in 2020 by a Dr. Marcia Stout. And it's called The Psychopath in Black and White, a reading list. So I got on there and read that. And she says that Dickens was the first to write a criminal psychopath. And that was in his book, Oliver Twist. And it would be Fagin, if you know Fagin, in his book, who basically used children and then abused them and stole the money. He set the kids off to steal money, and then he's like a Pied Piper, and then he brought the kids in and he would beat them and he would steal their money, and he was unconscionable. So he was listed as a psychopath. And we don't often think of, I don't believe we don't often think of Dickens certainly in the same kind of genre as Poe by any means. But they lived at the same time. And Oliver Twist was published in 1838, which is 5 years before The Telltale Heart was published. So maybe in fact Dickens beats him out for that honor, so to speak. I don't know. I don't want to rain on poor Poe because I love Poe so much. But I just wanted to check that out because I thought that was kind of interesting that he claimed that, but I don't know where he got that information.
Very interesting. I would have never thought about it.
Well, and I think I'm going to say this because psychopathy is definitely a Fagin. He meets that because he would make things happen. He would, sadist. Yes, right. Sadist. That's the one that inflicts. Okay. I always get those mixed up. I don't know why. But Fagin never committed murder. Fagin never took it to that next step. And I think that's where Poe is what maybe King was alluding to, is that where Poe actually took it all the way to where he wrote a dismemberment story, to where it wasn't just he killed someone, he mutilated the body.
So maybe that would be more of a psychopath.
He showed the psychology.
Yeah, but maybe that would be more of a psychopath.
That's the thing.
To me, that would be more of a psychopath. Because by the definitions that Stephen King provided at the bottom of the page, when he talks about violent social behavior, and for the sociopath, he just says having antisocial behavior. So I kind of take that more as maybe the man in Telltale Heart would be more of a psychopath. I don't know. I just thought that was interesting.
It borders on both. You can actually be, because sociopaths are usually created by their social environment, mostly, things that they've been through, like B.F. Skinner, one of the main psychologists of the early 1900s. He was a big on behavioral conditioning. He's the one that said, you give me a child up until 7 years old and I can turn them into anything.
Yeah.
So, and psychopathy, it goes back to the whole nature versus nurture criminology discussion. We all have that evil versus good inside of us. It's all about the choice that we make. And then that's the thing. Sometimes psychopathy doesn't develop. People can be psychopaths, but never go to the point of it being on that scale. But something sometimes pushes them over and they go into that source. Like with serial killers usually have that one thing that they have to feed, that one delusion or fetish or whatever that they cannot feel, or they do it and then it happens. They filled it for a few minutes, but then they have to keep going. So, yeah, I mean, if you look at the way he worded it, it is one of those things where it may just been because remember, this is his own essay. In my opinion, he's writing it from his own opinion in some instances, and then and him saying that Poe brought that to everything. So it's Fagin would fit. But as far as murder goes, I would have to say he's the one that wrote the first Helter Skelter, in my opinion. Because, I mean, you think about it, Helter Skelter, when they literally cut the baby out of her, that's more along the same lines, and then there's that other. But anyway, all right, let's move on to the next part, where it's the actual old man's Tigger. So let's look at his true homage to Edgar Allan Poe when he wrote this story that he sent to be published, and the publisher sent it back and said, no, not for us.
Bye, guys.
It was
Bye.
bye, Will.
I will.
See you next
Bye.
time.
See you next
Have
time.
a good night at class.
Thank you.
I can see why the editor rejected this. Back then, I'm sure he thought it was very vulgar and unoriginal, plagiaristic even. He probably didn't get the idea that it's an homage or it's an expansion or a different way of looking at the story. He just thought that Stephen King had ripped off Edgar Allan Poe because about 5 of the lines are verbatim from the Poe story.
Yep.
Yeah.
I agree.
I have a hard time seeing it as plagiarism because it seems so upfront about, this is my source material. This is a pastiche or a homage. But I guess what struck me kind of along those lines is what does it really add? What insight to the story does it add that we wouldn't have from the original? What's the new contribution in this piece?
Well, it just brings it up to the present time, the 20th
Understood.
Yeah.
With dig it used 300 times in the yeah, I mean, sure. I mean, I guess I get that. Although I would say the original wasn't that inaccessible. I mean, it wasn't like it was ancient Greek. It was from the 19th century. I guess, I don't mean this as a critique so much as just on the charge of being rejected. I guess I wouldn't see the complaint being as much about plagiarism as much as it is, again, just what's new. What's the contribution here?
Yeah, I did not dig it like at all. Like I was actually heated when I read it, but then I read the thing where he says that, he gives credit, he's the master and hopes he's not rolling in his grave, and that made me feel better about this story. I have a lot of respect for Stephen King. Shining is one of my favorite books, but yeah, I just feel like it was. I mean, it wasn't in a sense. It kind of felt plagiaristic just because he just almost flopped out the character names. So like, if this would have been a high school assignment and your student gave it to you, like back in, I know probably something crazy this like now, like you would put it into a computer system and been like, wow, you literally took this whole story and flipped out the names. But again, like we do know his source material, like Steve said, so it wouldn't be truly plagiarism. It's more of like, I guess, like a modern day. I don't even want to use the word parody, but I did not dig it. I mean, as an author myself, yeah, I get called for being repetitive a lot. But holy crap, like the dig it thing, like I get it. I grew up where everybody used to say Mick in front of everything, like Mick this and Mick that, you know, like a 90s kid here. But yeah, dig it, no. And to be honest, I'm only this sounds so harsh, but if I was Stephen King, I would like find all of those little books that have the story in it and bury them under my floorboards so no one would ever know. Like, I mean, Stephen King is like the modern master, guys. Like, let's keep it real. Like, he is like whether you love or hate him, I mean, he's like basically since Poe has been one of the major pioneers in horror, psychological horror. And I know he writes other genres, but I don't know. I guess I'm holding him to a higher standard, which is maybe perhaps unfair, right? Because like if one like I feel like if I was a teacher, my student gave this to me, I'm like, this is really good. Like I like how you put your own spin on it. But like, yeah, this is Stephen King who like, and he wonders why they sent it back to him because he did not add anything. He added the one little thing about the ring, which I thought was cool, like the cat ring, which is kind of like a nod to the black cat. So I was like, yeah, but like none of his humor came across to me in it. Like the comment about like the was it black as a cat's asshole or something? Sorry, I'm offensive. Serious curse word on here, Carmen. But like I was just like I kind of like went like I sucked my face in like a lemon. I was like, you could do better, Mr. King. You could do better.
Yeah, and
so that was my thought. He could have done better.
Well, he talked about rewriting it and then leaving it as is. To me, it's like typical 70s stuff or late 60s stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
I found it amusing, but I was kind of offended too. It was kind of like, okay, I could see both sides, but I had to laugh. I even read it out loud to my son yesterday. He came over and I said, hey, you need to hear this. And we were kind of chuckling about it because it is amusing in places.
Well, I've always had trouble with. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
No,
Go ahead,
please,
Mike.
please. No, please go ahead.
I was going to say, I've always had trouble, be it a book or a movie, when they take a classic and they make it crass. Just always had a problem with that because maybe it's the English major in me, and I had all this classic literature, you know, for years, and then you see something like this, the what the old dude's ticker. I was trying to look at this up, find the title. I don't know. It just but I also had a different reaction to it than because maybe I'm the oldest one here in the group. But I remember Vietnam very well. And I have a very good friend who has been suffering from PTSD from Vietnam for 50 years. And so when I first saw that this had to do with Vietnam, I had to ask myself if I even wanted to read it. But I did. But that definitely colored my my opinion of the piece. And I know that's probably not fair, but it did.
Thank you, Cheryl, because
I had a hard time reading through it for that reason.
I agree.
And I appreciate
like it when they make it crass too, like you said. Yeah, I don't like that either. Yeah.
Go ahead, Mike. What were you saying?
No, I was going to say I appreciate what Cheryl said because I was in Vietnam.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
And so I took offense at this story.
Okay.
I thought it was insulting. I thought one big difference, the question was asked a little while ago, what's the big difference? Or what's the difference in contributions between old dude's ticker and Telltale Heart? In Telltale Heart, we really didn't know much about the guy. We knew towards the end that he went bonkers, or he was bonkers, but we really didn't know much about him. In this one, in King's version, he jumps right out and tells you off the bat that he's the next GI. Within the first page, and he talks about Section 8. Well, then you read Section 8, you know that he's talking about being dismissed for mental reasons from the armed services. And I think I personally, rightfully or wrongfully, probably more so wrongfully than anything, I took offense to this because I was in Vietnam. And I appreciate what the guys did. I'm not saying that King took light of this. of this situation. But I'm saying for someone that was not military, as King was never associated with the military, as King also was sort of anti-authoritarian in all regards, which is okay. That's his right to do that. But I took offense at him sort of scoffing, and I felt he was scoffing at the military and blaming the whole murder and the gruesomeness on PTSD. That's what I felt, rightfully or wrongfully. But there were some things that King wrote in this piece that I thought was interesting. And even though he wasn't in the military, he obviously had some people that he was conferring with about it. There was the one part, and I highlighted it, but I can't find out where it is right now. He was talking about when the bombs went off or a big explosion. Well, maybe I shouldn't even quote it because it made sense when I read it.
Sadly, war veterans.
Yeah, he was deaf, even though he couldn't see it or couldn't hear it. That reminded me of a time in Vietnam where Charlie would come in and throw his rockets at us. He'd always do it early in the morning. And you couldn't hear him out there and you couldn't see him out there. But there was something something in the air that you could just get a sense that something was not right. And that's what he said this in this one part when the old man was lying in the bed. He didn't know what was going on, but he knew something wasn't right. And he sensed it. But anyway, and I apologize if I offended any one of you in saying that, but I was a little bit offended by King's use of Vietnam as a backdrop for this.
I thank you for mentioning that King had not been in the military, because that was my next question. Because this friend I'm speaking about who was in Vietnam was born in 1947, as was King. So I kind of I wondered if King had been in the war, but I kind of sensed he had not, or maybe he would have treated this a different way. I don't know.
He wasn't in the military.
Yeah,
it does make me wonder. Kind of getting back to our earlier critique about what's the new contribution. If he had portrayed the narrator in a sympathetic vein and treated the PTSD as something that was unfortunate and something to be pitied, it might be actually a real interesting contribution as a twist on the tale. Because as Poe writes, you don't feel any sympathy for this guy. You see as this crazy who killed the old man. But if this was kind of more of an explanation about why, in a way that wasn't mocking him, but was sympathizing with him, it might be a worthy twist on the tale.
Yeah. What I was going to say is, sadly, war veterans were an unfair and easy target for a while in literature, movies, and TV. We've seen so many crime episodes in which a Korean War veteran and then a Vietnam War veteran later comes back home but is crazy in some way and acts out. It became a boring cliche, and it wasn't until a few years later that more thoughtful, rational depictions of war veterans began to emerge.
Yeah, I think that one of the things I found offensive is that I remember coming back from Vietnam, the commander got up on the airplane as we left Benoit and said, when you get back to the States, if you step off the plane and if there's a crowd of people out there and they're spitting and throwing at you, put your head down and keep walking. And I thought, ain't that some crap? And then I read this where I don't say he's mocking. I'm just saying I don't think he's paying enough respect.
Well, Mike, in case you guys don't know, Mike is my father-in-law, but him and I had talked briefly about this. But remember how you had also said about when he admits that he actually killed his superior officer or whatever. right? Because that could also be maybe a political stand. This guy actually killed his higher up guy, and that how so it wasn't his first murder either. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he was an escaped, and
Yeah.
this is where it kind of got for me, like what Mike's saying. My uncle was also served in Vietnam. And when he got back, not only did he have to face like what Mike was saying, but he almost killed my aunt because he was so far. And he ended up spending like a year and a half in a VA medical ward for the for the psych ward. Um, and as you probably did, Mike, I don't know if he did or not, but he became dependent upon alcohol because it was the only thing that could shut off what he had went through over there, and he became an alcoholic. And so it took a long time, but what really kind of put him back on the focus is when he tried to kill his wife one night because he heard her moving in the house, and he was sleeping behind the couch in the living room because he had to be at the lowest point. He had to have every open area around him. And like Mike, one of the parts in there that I was going to read that you were talking about was about how you could hear everything. You would sit up, like the black pajamas. That's one of the things he was saying in there about waiting for the black pajamas in the night. And I remember my uncle, he never would tell me the story. My aunt was the one that told me the story about what happened to him before he got to come home. That during the night they were in a pitch tent on a recon and they were out in the jungle. And the next morning, as the sun come up, when he woke up, the guy in the tent next to him had his throat slit. And the only way that he survived is that the sun came up because he had heard just as he woke up the guy leaving the tent. So he, and she told me this story because she had to go through therapy with him. But anyway, I was also not very thrilled about this story, but I could see the way he wrote it. He wrote it from a point of view of someone that had no idea and had nobody in this, had not experienced anything with military, had not experienced anything like that. I mean, the man was 25 years old. And so that's one of the things I was reading. I was like, well, okay, 25. Let's see, what was Poe doing when he was 25? you know, so it just, I was definitely not impressed by his use. I can see where he thought by making the narrator more of a person that you could hate, because like Steve said, he wasn't somebody you could sympathize with. Stephen King did not write him to be a sympathetic character. And he really didn't bring anything to the story, because you know who I was thinking about while I was reading it? I was thinking about Charles Manson. That's who I thought of whenever I was reading this story, because I know he was trying to bring it about because he was making a statement at the time, the early 70s with Vietnam. But all I could think about was, you're just writing a story of like Charles Manson, only Charles Manson was just way more creepy. Okay. I mean, the man could have people follow him and do his bidding and commit murder, but this guy, and then him basing it like this guy was an escapee from a psychiatric ward because he had killed his lieutenant. I don't know if he actually said killed or if he just said attacked.
It's like it was like that weird. It's funny. I actually had to look up this word. Mike and I were talking. Was it like scragged or something? I had to look up that word. It means like be hung or strangled.
Yeah, that's one thing. Confirmed the suspect going in the name is fact, who escaped from the Ohio Veterans Hospital in 1971. And then he not only escaped, but he took another name and then was supposedly living with this old man. So it's like, how? Why? Has he been there the whole time? Why now? After 3 years?
The
Supposedly
eye. It was the
yeah,
eye.
took 3 years for the eye to push him over the edge or whatever. But I can, like Dr. Jeff said, I can understand why they sent it back and said, not for us.
I can too.
Yeah, that would have been.
I think it would have been very insensitive to veterans and active members of the military at that time, both. I mean, it might have ruined King's career before it ever really got started.
Yeah, you're right, Carmen. He's lucky they didn't publish that when because now he can do no harm, but
Right. And and it's very hard to find the copies of where it's published.
Well, I saw 3 of them. You guys have all of them now.
Oh yeah, I love that cat in your background.
Oh yeah, that's Gorbat. She's my 22-pound girl. That's what I'm saying. She scares me. I hope she doesn't break anything when she's up there.
Oh, she's staring at you now.
She knows you're talking about her. You better watch it.
Looking at you.
Well, I totally agree with everyone. This story did nothing for me. I honestly, I was alluded to earlier that I'm very sleepy because of traveling this weekend, getting very little sleep, and then not going to bed early enough last night. So I haven't talked a whole lot tonight because of that. I fell asleep reading it. So, but it was so just different lens, or not even different lens. It was just like it was almost like Poe Mad Libs. He just changed out the characters and put some different twists. The only thing this did for me, and it really goes back to Poe, and because in King's version, he focuses on, the eye, as Holly just said. But he also, besides talking about the film, the cataract on the pale blue eye, he also talks about the white gloves, the white cotton gloves. And he kept saying that, a few times. And so then it started, and this is not something I've really focused on when I've read The Telltale Heart. And I've read it a million times. Unfortunately, I've never gotten to teach it to students just because I haven't been in that grade level. But then I started digging into color representations of, just figurative meaning behind everything, because that's my go-to for when I'm teaching. But looking at, obviously the first thing we think of usually with the color white, we think of purity, but then just looking up other words, cleanliness, new beginnings, light. In Eastern culture, sometimes it means death and transparency. And then blue, we think calm, serenity, sometimes depression. What did I else start writing? Water, sky, loyalty, trust, justice with the police, like a blue uniform, even though that's darker and not pale. And so then I started going back thinking about The Telltale Heart and thinking of Poe could have used a brown eye, a green eye, a hazel eye. Why did he pick blue? And so was it showing this man who, the narrator, is depressed, but it's also the opposite of justice. It's injustice what he did to the old man. So I started looking for all these the antithesis of all the different meanings. And so that's the only thing that this story that King wrote did for me. And I say thank you, but let's put this away forever.
Last thing I want to say about this is on page 120. If anybody's got your copy in front of you, on page 120, there's the next or the last full paragraph. I read that about 10 times trying to figure out what in the world he's saying. When he's talking about the white gloves that Carmen was just dealing with. And he talks about slapping those short sticks into white palms, white like the cataract on the old dude's eye.
Yeah.
Anyway, and then the last sentence it says, "It was the old dude's ticker. It made me even madder. The way beating a drum will make a GI feel ballsier." And I just don't know where he was trying to go with that paragraph. Does that make sense to anybody? I'm sure it does, but not to me. I don't
Yeah,
understand what
I
it's saying.
mean, kind of like I know, like I use it a lot in my own writing, like because the drum is supposed to be like a summons to war, so it kind of gets you like pumped up, kind of like a rock
Yeah.
song at like a pep rally kind of thing. At
Uh,
least that
it's
second
it's a
part.
it's a mockery of one of Poe's sentences. It increased my fury as the beating of a drum stimulates the soldier into courage.
Hmm.
So
Oh,
Yeah.
he was doing a
good.
spoof or takeoff on that sentence.
Okay. Okay.
Way to go, Doctor
Yeah.
Jones.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. I'm done.
Well, the one thing that really pissed me off about him using the MPs and the white gloves had nothing to do with the color. It had to do with him mocking authority. Because with I mean, white gloves were standard, especially in dress uniforms.
Mhm.
And then them using the sticks and him using that tone or saying about the sticks hitting the gloves and then the white gloves because and a person who has a real aversion to authority knows that the white glove is like a symbol for they think they're right, you know, that white glove is like saying the white glove thing of where they are, checking you and all that. So it just, that was where it started getting really, really bad for me. Cause I'm like, dude, you're not only dissing the MPs, you're dissing the military as a whole, and you're dissing authority by all means, which, it it is his right. It is his, it was his writing, it was his way of putting it in that time period of what was going on. He was, in my opinion, I think it was Stephen King's way of sticking it to the man in the military because
Yeah,
he
I
probably
agree.
was one of those that was spitting on them coming home or didn't even care, or he felt that we shouldn't have been involved in Vietnam and to begin with. So who better to take it out on was the soldiers that got sent over there, not the people that sent them. So
Which is
I think
Steve,
that could well be. I guess as a 25-year-old, he might just have been trying to play off this idea of the beating of the heart and
mhm,
coming up with a military, because in Poe's story, the narrator thinks he hears the beating of the heart, and
mhm,
and and in this case, it's like he thinks he hears the beating of these batons on the white gloves. So
mhm.
could it be as simple as he's trying to come up with something that a military person would react to rather than Poe's story?
Could be, especially if you have a military veteran who keeps referring to that he's not Section 8, that he's not crazy and has escaped from a mental facility after, scragging his lieutenant. So, that could be one of the things that pushes him over the edge is not just the beating of the heart, but the beating of the heart reminding him of, oh, wait, I'm an escaped convict.
Mhm.
They're coming after me to kill me because I killed somebody already. So
Wow.
it could be. I like that idea, Steve, but it, and in that time period, him being 25, him being young, and we all know that a lot of the influences of our society make their way into anything we're doing, saying, acting, speaking, writing, all that jazz. Jazz hands. Okay, sorry. But hey, had to do it, I had to do it. But anyway, I will say that I'm glad I did not read this before I read anything else of Stephen King's because I would not be a Stephen King person. I would not be a fan. But I will have to say that it was what, 1974? I think it was 74 when he released Carrie.
Yeah.
He wrote Carrie and released it, and then what, Salem's Lot was the year after.
Yeah, I think that's what you were telling me earlier.
Yeah, I think Shining was 79. Yeah.
Yeah, Shining is close to there.
Yeah, Shining. I love The Shining. I love Jack Nicholson. I love Jack Nicholson.
I love Jack. I love like Jack in the book. Like seriously, he's like one of my serial killer. Like he's not really a killer, but I have like such a crush on Jack. I love Jack.
Yes.
In the book, not Jack Nicholson. I would like to just say that. Yeah.
Hey, they could have picked a better character for that than
And
Jack
just remember,
Nicholson.
Jack Nicholson made.
He's iconic.
Well, he made one of his early debuts in Roger Corman's The Raven.
It's Jack
and Boris Karloff.
Right.
So
where he was a stud before he became like this really creepy horror guy. Yeah.
Before he went creepy.
I never realized that Jack Nicholson was so attractive until I saw the old Raven one. And I was like, is that Jack Nicholson? I had to like look. I was like, oh my goodness, it is him. Wow.
Yeah, he was in
Stephen King's The Shining that put him that way.
Yeah,
that brought out the creepy.
Well, they said that. Why am I having a name blank? Like on her name. She just recently passed away. The one that played his wife, that played Wendy.
Shelley Duvall.
Thank you. Like they said, like she like really never acted after that. Like she had a complete mental breakdown.
No, in fact, what's his name? That was the director. Was horrible to her.
Yeah, Kubrick. Yeah, Stanley Kubrick.
Really mean to her.
Oh,
yeah.
And supposedly the reason he was so mean to her is he was trying to get her to act, which I guess it worked because she did act.
Yeah,
I mean, she was great in it. I think it's one of her best roles, honestly.
Yeah, I just saw a thing today. They're like that she cried so much on the scene that she actually ran out of tears, and that she had to keep drinking water so she could produce tears.
Right.
She was always like constantly like ah. No, she did a great job.
He was really awful to her to access, but supposedly he was trying to get her to act, and I guess she was kind of afraid to. I mean, he got her to act.
Yeah, I mean, she was
very nice way.
Yeah, because I think that scene with the actor on the steps towards the end, I think they said they shot it over like 100 times. And
something
of course,
like
but Jack Nicholson had said like, yeah, I'm a boss. I was doing everything perfect. Like he said, like nothing was said to him, but it was like all focused on her. Like you're horrible. Like you redo it. She's like, but yeah, no, it was. I mean, it's I don't know if you guys. I know we're not talking about it. I'm just gonna say, like the miniseries is so much better. If you guys caught the Shining miniseries that Stephen King actually like helped direct and everything, it has Steven Weber in it as Jack.
Right.
Perfectly casted, in my opinion. So yeah, if you haven't checked that out, check it out. I think it's way better than the Jack Nicholson movie, in my opinion.
Yeah, Dr. Jeff,
it has more of the authentic plot, not as much stylization as the Kubrick film. So, it gives you the story in a better way.
Okay. Yeah, more true to his ending. Obviously, the ending.
I agree.
Is a big difference.
I mean, I think Kubrick's is good for what he did, but it was not a good representation of the story, really.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah. Agreed.
And Steve and Dr. Jeff added, Steve said, if you thought Jack Nicholson was a stud in The Raven, check him out in The Terror with Boris Karloff. And Dr. Jeff says, watch for the clips from The Terror in the outstanding film Targets. Okay, cool. Okay.
Yeah, if not, I will have to check that out.
Yeah,
were those movies or were they like a TV show or something?
No, movies.
They're
Targets in the late 60s, Peter Bogdanovich directed it, is another story of a psychopath.
Oh, okay.
And it's unforgettable. It's different from anything you've ever seen. So it's worth watching if it comes around on Turner Classic Movies or somewhere.
It's called Targets?
Yeah,
I've never even heard of it.
Yeah,
I think 1968.
Thank you both for that.
Directed by Peter Bogdanovich. Boris Karloff is in it, playing essentially a version of himself, a retired old horror actor who has been passed by the world. But he really should have been nominated for an Oscar for it. It's one of his best performances. It's a very good performance.
Say the name of it is Target?
Yeah, Targets. Plural. Targets.
I bet you it's on YouTube.
That's a creepy movie. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Steve, you and I talked about that movie one time. And you said you didn't like it. Yeah, it was You're weird little movie.
And
Something you would
Cheryl,
not
I
think you
agree with you.
Forrest Goff would be in, but
Yeah, I agree with Cheryl too.
Boris,
Boris.
yeah, Boris was definitely a stud. Yeah.
I've always had a crush on him since I was a kid. Yeah.
In that Black Cat movie that you guys didn't like? Yes. Yes.
What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Black cat movie you're talking about. I have no idea what you're talking about. Oh. No idea what you're talking about. Okay.
All right.
Yes.
Well, any other thoughts
Mhm.
on the essay, the old dude's ticker, or the Telltale Heart?
Yes, the Telltale Heart is my absolute favorite Poe everything above the Raven. The Telltale Heart is my favorite. I just want to I know I've said it like a billion times, but I absolutely love it. I think it's brilliant. And about the essay, like the unreliable narrator is like one of the biggest like tropes in the genre of horror psychological thrillers. It's one of my favorite to use, and I absolutely love the Telltale Heart. Thank you, Mr. Poe, for it.
Yes. And
Yeah, I have read the story aloud to my students at Tennessee State University many times, and I tell them that at the time this was written, it was the scariest story ever written. The reading public had never read anything like it. They were shocked at the violence and the gore. Today, we've seen everything, and it may not have as much impact, but I still believe that it is one of the scariest stories ever written.
I used to read it to my fifth graders and they loved it.
oh wow.
Oh, yeah.
They did.
Oh, Gary, I don't know if you called it, but we did a reading the other week for the Poet Like Poe, and Dr. Jeff did a reading of the Telltale Heart, which was like insanity.
It was awesome.
It was
Yeah, you have to go
amazing.
back. I was so, yeah, it was so, you were so actually scary. You were like so in the moment. It was
Yes.
so good, Dr. Jeff.
I loved it. And go check it out on our YouTube channel, Poe Unplugged, because it will be ever there for or forevermore.
Forevermore.
So good.
Wait a minute, aren't you doing the Telltale Heart for the Doomsday?
Yes, I'm
Yeah.
reading it again on Saturday, May 17th.
Yes.
Yes.
So I
So
need to start
you can
rehearsing
catch
it
him
again.
again.
Yes. We'll be live streaming on YouTube again for Doomsday. The countdown is on. And for 8 hours straight of Poe prose.
And that's going to be on is that going to be on your YouTube, or where is that actually going to be?
Yes. So we have
the Poe Unplugged one.
Yeah, we have 8 hours straight. And in Baltimore, the National Edgar Allan Poe Theater with Alex Zavostovich, they'll be doing 24 hours starting at noon that day, going till noon the next day. In Ohio, they're doing 5 hours. And I think England, Jeanie, is it England?
They're doing 24 hours. So Freedom.
Yeah.
Yeah. Freedom Theater is putting theirs on in the UK, and it's 24 hours.
Yes. Who
just
did,
I know Steven said he was doing it.
Yeah, who just did Holly's audiobook of Eye of Athena. So check that out.
He's amazing. Steven is absolutely amazing, guys. You guys have heard me talk about Steven before. I'm such a fangirl. Steven is so freaking good. He plays such a great, like, insane, like, because he does the performance of Telltale Heart live, like he does that at Baltimore for the festival. If you guys have ever have a chance to see Steven, I cannot say it enough. Like, he is so good. I always say to him, "You play such a great psychopath," and I mean this as a compliment. Steven Smith's awesome.
Yes, he does a one-man Poe show.
Yeah.
So
I just looked up that movie. I just looked up the movie Targets. It said it was made in 1968, and it is on YouTube for 1 hour and 32 minutes.
Oh, awesome.
Oh,
okay.
cool.
Okay. Yeah.
So I can add it to my watch list. I can add that to my watch list again, along with, I have a lot of watch lists because it's like,
oh yes,
me too.
Keep finding things, especially with Poe things.
Oh, I know. So next month we will be reading The Spectacles,
Spectacles.
by the choice that you guys decided on, which we were totally cool with. And that will be May 27th. And then June 24th, we'll be reading William Wilson and discussing. So May 27th, Spectacles, and June 24th, William Wilson. So get your doppelganger on.
Will you send emails out to remind us?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, we do.
So yes, so I start advertising it.
Am I on your list?
Yes, you're on the list now. Yeah, so Gary, definitely keep joining us.
Great.
We do it's usually the last Tuesday
Okay.
of every month, unless we have something. Usually it's me, my schedule, something comes up where I have to change it. But yeah, but you will definitely be emailed. So
okay. Excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah, unless she forgets you off the list like she did me. Of all the people,
Really,
of all
Carmen?
the people, for her to leave off the list for the Poe Unplugged link for tonight, it was me.
I did.
Hey,
I did.
Carmen,
I scheduled.
wait a minute. Did you put it out?
I schedule it the night before, and I always copy 6 Degrees email, Jeanie. And for whatever reason, I blame it on being sleep deprived. And so this afternoon, I talked to her, and she goes, "Hey, did you send the link?" I said, "Yes, it came out at 8 o'clock this morning, Central Time." And she goes, "No, it didn't." I said, "Yes, it did, because several people have emailed me back." Freudian slip. Oh,
wasn't me. I wasn't one of them. Yeah, nope.
It really wasn't.
Sorry. I thought, yeah, I see how it is. Yeah, and then she goes, "Well, you would have texted me anyway." I'm like, "That's not the point. Hello." But anyway.
Yes, but thank you guys for joining.
So I think we have bashed Stephen King enough.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's another short story,
Go
if you
ahead.
want to go outside of Poe, that you might want to read sometime, by the great Robert Bloch, author of Psycho, The Man Who Collected Poe.
I've read that. It's good.
Yes, I've read that. Yeah, it's very good. Yes,
it's very good.
I want to mention another great writer, Richard Matheson, who wrote I Am Legend, The Shrinking Man, Somewhere in Time. But Stephen King dedicated his book Cell to Matheson. He reveres Matheson and admits that he has been influenced by Matheson because, in his words, Matheson brought the horror home. We were talking about horror in everyday settings, which I find much scarier than, ancient castles with clanking chains. So Stephen King said that Richard Matheson was writing stories that could happen on your street or next door to you. And that scared him, that was more meaningful to him and scarier to him than, Gothic horror, which we are now kind of removed from at this point in time.
I've enjoyed Matheson very much.
Oh, yes.
And Block too.
Yeah, two great ones.
Oh, they're amazing. All right. Well, guys, thank you so much for this discussion tonight. And Keith had to jump off. I don't know if you noticed his message. His phone was having some issues, and because I wanted to say thank you, Keith. So hopefully he'll go back and watch this. Keith was the one that suggested doing something with King, and I think this was really kind of a cool idea that we kind of put together with looking at King's version of The Telltale Heart in this essay. And to me, I think, this book has so many, I was going to say, I don't think it'll come through, but it has so many different, essays in here that I think we can go back to it. Yeah. Thank you, Gary. That we can maybe down the road look into looking at some of these other essays and comparisons and things. So it made for really a unique discussion tonight. Yeah. It was really enjoyable.
Yes.
Well, I think it makes a unique discussion because it's looking at people who, let's just say it, are known for their writing, because they're the the Telltale Tellers. I don't know why the heck I got into that, but anyway, they're the main people with the groove now, doing what they do, and so why not? Let's talk about Edgar Allan Poe from their points of view.
Yeah.
Listen to how they got influenced and all that, and see how much that they align with the way we think and how we got, involved with Poe, or how weird they go off the rails with. All right, who's hissing? It's not me.
Sorry, that's Mr. Bad and Vincent fighting. Sorry.
Oh, okay. I was
You have a cat named Mr. Bad. No wonder why.
like Mr. Bad.
You're condoning it with a name like that. Like, yeah, just be you, honey.
Well, I thought it was mine missing it.
He leads into it.
There you go. He deserved it, right? Okay.
Well, and I was going to say, just in looking at the table of contents of the book, there is an essay. Let's see. Hold on. Well, there is a William Wilson essay written by, looks like Lisa Scottoline, Identity Crisis. We might want to even, I'll probably add that on the promotion of it on our website for June, because that would be kind of cool to read that and get another author's point of view of it. So, yeah.
Now, what are we doing in July?
We haven't decided.
We talked about what we're doing in July.
No, we haven't decided.
I can't remember. Okay. I flip something.
We'll talk about that in May.
Okay, that works.
What about doing the cast of Amontillado?
We
love that story.
Yeah, we discussed it a long time ago, so we could bring that back.
It's got an essay by Jan Burke.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Would y'all want to go ahead? I can just add that for July. Does that sound good?
Okay. Yeah.
I think that sounds fabulous.
That's a good one.
Hey, and we'd have Dr. Jeff read it.
I was going to say, was Dr. Jeff the one who read it last month?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, we did read that sent shivers up my spine. I think we need to lead off with Dr. Jeff's interpretation of it.
Exactly. I agree with that. I'll go for that.
Absolutely.
You could do audiobooks, Dr. Jeff. You really are that good. Like, you need to record that.
Every time I see a partially done brick wall, I get creeped out.
Yeah. It's like,
every time I see a trowel, I have the same response.
And it happened several times on Dark Shadows. A couple.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that. Reverend Trask.
The one thing that reminds me about it is Renee. I can't remember his name. He played Odo on Deep Space Nine.
Renee Auberjonois.
Thank you. And he did that. It was a Saturday special, I think, when they did the Cask of Amontillado. He was in it. I think it was the Cask, or he was in the Red or Mask of the Red Death. One of those two. It was like when they did those short stories, like they were Saturday Gothic. I can't remember what it was called. It was back in the 80s. I've slept since then.
I think I remember it.
Yeah. I loved him in that, and I was like, okay, he's a great actor. But anyway, yes, thank you everyone for joining us. What
I was going to add just a little funny thing about bricks. So there was another Poe family in North Carolina, in the Fayetteville area. I have to throw this in here because it's interesting. But this Poe family,
now she's throwing bricks. Okay.
They're not related to the real Poe, but I believe his name was Edgar. But the family owned the Poe Brick Company. They were brick makers. Is that so funny? So
that's funny.
Yeah, because there's a Poe house that they own that's still there. I haven't gotten to visit it, but that's on the list. So
that's cool.
Okay, I'm done with my little story.
Okay.
I just want to say thanks to Carmen and Jeanie for making this happen. month.
You're
This is just such a
welcome.
good community, and it's like I build the whole month around this. So thank you so much.
Yes,
Yay.
thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you
you know,
both.
we love it.
Thank
We
you.
love it. So, and this
Yeah.
again, this was a great discussion tonight. We always have a good discussion, and Gary, you're new to us, and we're so glad you're joining us. We do kind of bird
Thank
walk
you.
sometimes, but it always comes back to Poe. So,
I love how she says we, but she really means me. We all know that, right?
I
We
was
all know that.
trying to
And
be
Mike,
Put in our
nice.
little comments.
yeah, okay. But Mike, we're glad to see you back and
Yes.
continue
Thank
to continue to get better. And hopefully we'll
Thank you.
see you many, many more times. As with everybody, take care of yourselves.
Yes.
It's weird weather going on. I don't know. It's just wild. I know we're all over the place, right? East, west, middle,
Mm-hmm.
but
It's like a
it's
new
like
adventure every day. It's like from one
Yes.
extreme to another.
exactly. Yep.
Absolutely.
We've got
It's like, what's going to
Mother
happen
Nature.
today? Tornadoes or what?
Yes.
Yeah, Mother Nature is in menopause, so you never know what you're gonna get. So anyway,
Oh my God.
just saying. But on that note, until next month on the 27th, right? Yeah, that's
May
what she said.
27th.
May
Yes.
27th with the spectacles. But before that, join us for Doomsday, May the 17th at Poe Unplugged 3978. And you'll catch us for 8 hours starting 11 Central Standard Time until 7 p.m.
And you will get to hear
Standard time or daylight time?
We're on
Well,
daylight
We're
time
on
now.
daylight time.
Yeah, we're on
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Steve, I'm lucky if I know where I'm at. So, I'm like, whatever time it is now, I don't know. Anyway.
Yes. So yes,
So
I'll be reading, Jeannie will be reading, and Dr. Jeff, I believe, aren't you
Dr. Jeff.
starting off Doomsday for us? I think you're opening.
Yeah, I'm starting at 11 a.m.
Yes.
with The Telltale Heart
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
and Annabelle Lee, City in the Sea, and The Haunted Palace.
Yes.
Yep.
Wow.
He's taking us all there. It's gonna be awesome.
Yes.
So
he's kicking it off. So
yep, he's kicking us off as we're kicking everybody else off. Get out! Come on!
Bye, everybody.
Just so that I'm
Thanks.
sure that I've got this right. Spectacles is for May.
correct.
Yes.
So May
Okay.
27th,
Spectacles and me.
and
I have never read that one.
Oh, it's good. It's really
Ooh.
good. Yeah.
I don't know why. Okay.
All right.
Now you can. All right. Until
Yes.
next time. I
Thank
say
you.
adieu.
Yes.
Go out.
Bye.
Yes, go out.
Bye.
Bye,
See you
everybody.
next time.
Have a good night.
Bye.
See you all next time.
You too.
Good night.
Bye.
See ya.
What are you doing?
Who are you talking to?
Free bird.